So we've got that mobile guys documentation toolbox, which can be used in a shop environment. Very good and handy for documenting. It can pull stuff from different computers. So we just store this. So here's a store to buy the ADDI. You can do a freeze frame with that tool. That's for cent. It's pretty cool stuff. That's about that. The cent decoder, tune mode, and frequency mode. So that's pretty nifty. But anyways, we're going to get out of this and get into our diag. But Randall Scott, he's got some pretty cool stuff going on. And a very good guy. Very easy to talk to. Very personable. All around good guy that I can tell so far from speaking with him. He's been in my circle for quite a while. So let's get into it. So here is cylinder 1. This is our problem cylinder. We're getting approximately 44 psi, 45 psi in this capture here. Our other captures, we're getting roughly 70, 72. And this is cylinder 4 here. This is cylinder 3. And we're getting roughly the same. So my thing here is, though, that I'm measuring roughly 2.2 psi on my known good cylinders between the exhaust pocket and the intake pocket. On cylinders 3 and 4. Now, I think there's a rule of thumb of 2 or 3 psi difference. Anything above that, you got a problem. Some guys say 0 or even match pressures on those sides, or what you should have ideally. And that would mean that you have no leaks in the cylinder. Currently, I have a leak in the cylinder. Now, from looking at everything seems to be in time on this engine. And we are building some compression. We do have misfire counts on cylinder 1. Cylinder 1's spark plug the electrode was melted down. It was melted to like a nub. You can see the ball where that electrode had actually become molten. And it's missing some of the ceramic at the other electrode. The ground strap and the electrode, I guess you would say. So the ground strap hex over. It was melted back to a nub. So it was all balled up into a molten ball where it cooled down and hardened into a ball. But anyway, I can show you a photo of that. I'll insert a photo of that so you can see it. And then we're back on here. This is cylinder 3. Let's go over and look at this area. This is the only anomaly that I'm really seeing. Unless, yeah, I shouldn't be tripping because this is pretty much it. So we get in here, the exhaust valve closes, intake opens. In this area here. So we're, within a good amount. We're within 16 degrees there. It's within 20 degrees, whatever you would like to have. Between 20 and 30, I think, is rule of thumb. This is cylinder 3. Let's look at cylinder 4. Same thing. We're about the same amount of time, same amount of degrees over when those happen. Now, let's go over to cylinder 1, our problem cylinder, and let's take a look in here. We don't have the same thing happen. I've got a downward slope here at the end of the exhaust plateau, indicating that, to me, it looks like the exhaust valve might not be sealing that great. Let's see, we've got about 30 degrees, 35 degrees almost, 34.5, where this thing begins to drop down into where it's finally settled down. But between here and here, it's very delayed slope, and then it actually opens. It actually falls down once that intake valve opens up, and the exhaust valve should be closed. But it seems to be okay on that side, so I'm wondering about cam lobe now, possibly. I might be off on that, I'm not real sure. But everything, all three of my cylinders that I'm showing you here, they all look the same in this area of the exhaust plateau. Except for this one, when it comes time to shut that exhaust valve and open the intake valve. Something's happening there. And not just that, but we can show you that it looks to me like there's a leak. When I measure between the exhaust pocket and the intake pocket, I do have that 3.8 psi compared to the 2 and 2.2 on the others. It's possible that is what caused the lean condition to break down the spark plugs, to melt the spark plug. Or all the spark plugs seem to be worn. They are definitely the wrong spark plugs. They have NGKs in there. The factory ones are much different, or completely different brand of spark plug. And I cannot find the part number for NGK that crosses over to a Genesis. So we have that issue. We have the low compression in cylinder 1. We have the deeper exhaust pocket. Oh. This. All right, somewhere in there it looks pretty decent. And we have got about a 5.3 psi difference. Oops. I'm going to steal this guy. Do the same thing. Let's go to, which one am I at? 998. Let's go to 0. So our 0 here, we're showing a little bit more pressure in that exhaust, but not so much. Not too much. Where's that coming from? We do get some pressure in cylinder 4. But that's okay. We're not going to say there's nothing. I mean, I don't know. I'm not the pressure genius here. By no means. So let's take this one, do the same thing. Let's just see what we got. We're at 172. Let's find that number. I'll take him to 0. And now it looks kind of like cylinder 4 has a little bit of pressure in there. But we're at a difference of 4.95, let's say 5 psi difference. That's cylinder 3. Here's cylinder 4. 4.3 difference. Oops. So we got a 4.9 and 4.3 difference. We do show an intake valve issue on this cylinder, but it could be to engine speed maybe. But I am cranking, so I don't think that engine speed would play a part there. But I guess it could, because it would be easier for the engine to turn on a lower compression engine. So that's very possible, I guess, even in cranking. And on here, we got 5.3 psi difference. So let's look at that again. Cylinder 1, 5.3 psi difference. Cylinder 3, almost a 5 psi difference. Interesting. And a 4.3 psi difference. That's very weird. Where's our leak at? Do I have injector seals issues since it's a GDI? And that cylinder got hot? What happened? Using the wrong spark plugs created an issue of being lean? Somebody did a so-called spark plug job on this car. Got them from Amazon. Put the wrong shit in there. Interesting. Either way, I don't know what's wrong with this car. All I do know is that I see this, and I want to go look at the exhaust valve. I'll probably do a leak down test on this car and put a pulse sensor in the exhaust. Maybe put it in try it in an intake like that as well. See if we're losing air out of either one. And then maybe try to listen around the around the injectors for any leaks. I need to see if this is a GDI engine. But here's that. Now I'll show you what the scope mate looks like. So I'm in here. Let's go back to here. I think I already showed you that. But just in case I haven't. All right, there's that. Probably could have made this a little bit bigger. Or I could just stick this out here. Oops. I didn't mean to put him in there. Let's get these out of here. I got some extra lines over here because once you click, yeah, so ignore these 3 over here, but these are all my measurements. Probably find a place to put them. You can change your labels if you wanted to change it. I'm going to say that's intake exhaust valve beginning to close. Like I said, it's about exhaust valve is fully closed there. And I guess that's the way I would view that. Because as you get to this point, that's when it truly drops. But it starts to shoulder over there in comparison with these others, which do not have that characteristic. But why does that one got it? I guess we'll need to see. Probably needs a valve job. Exhaust valve could be burnt. I don't know where this is leaving out of, but we'll check our crankcase, intake, exhaust for leak down, and just go from there. That'd be the next step on this cylinder. But for me, if I knew how to really get into these waveforms and I had my exhaust and intake pulses on this screen, I could use those to see what's going on and probably figure this out. But I'm going to go for a leak down test because the engine is pretty easy to make that happen, and use that, see if I can use that for training myself to figure out what's going on with this engine by using in-cylinder transducer. I do see that right there. So here you have it. If somebody wants to help, I don't got a whole lot of time to fool with this, so I probably won't go much further past this.